President Trump's legal team is all shook up, and one of the new guys, bless his soul, is gushing about hush money. Trump, Mueller, and the media play 49 questions on Russia, while Trump prepares to make, or break, deals with North Korea and Iran. And rapper Kanye West takes to Twitter with explosive tweets that he says are just free thinking. It's only Thursday, but this week we're going nuclear. I'm Molly Roberts, and joining me are opinion writers Jonathan Capehart, Christiane Amanpour, and Christian Carroll. Our first bombshell, Rudy Giuliani, a recent addition to the president's legal team, said last night that the president reimbursed his lawyer for the $130,000 payment he made porn actress Stormy Daniels. The money aimed to keep her quiet about her alleged affair with Trump. Listen to Giuliani give Fox News host Sean Hannity a little surprise.
That money was not campaign money. Sorry, I'm giving you a fact now that you don't know. It's not campaign money. No campaign finance violation. So
they funneled it through a law firm.
Funneled through a law firm, and the president repaid it.
This was news to, well, everyone. Trump had denied the payment before, but acknowledged it on Twitter this morning. He said, Mr. Cohen, an attorney, received a monthly retainer, not from the campaign and having nothing to do with the campaign, from which he entered into, through reimbursement, a private contract between two parties, known as a non-disclosure agreement, or NDA. So, Jonathan.
Yes.
What the heck is going on here? Do we think that Giuliani had a strategy in making this disclosure, or is Trump, with these suspiciously lawyerly tweets, mopping up a mistake that Giuliani made?
Okay, I think several things are happening. As a friend pointed out to me, when the Access Hollywood tape came out, it was Rudy Giuliani who was out there as the lead cheerleader to help change the narrative. The same thing is happening now, but here's where I differ with my friend on this. Back then, it was just candidate Trump. It wasn't President Trump. There was no federal investigation that we knew of at the time involving him. Now what we have is a President Trump under the white-hot lights of the presidency, under investigation by at least Mueller and the Southern District of New York, in a completely separate thing involving his lawyer. Giuliani going on the warm confines of Hannity's television show on the state television network of Earth 2, as I call it, is there, I think, playing a big PR game. A PR game where he's playing to the court of public opinion, to the president's base. Meanwhile, here on Earth 1, Mueller is operating in the court of law. And so Rudy can do everything that he can to try to make the PR case for the president so that the base that's watching him on Hannity stays in line. But Mueller, in the meantime, is moving in lockstep with the law that is going to jam up the president. And the last thing I'll say is that we know that the president is somebody who is self-centered, narcissistic. Everything revolves around him. He couldn't care about the presidency, doesn't care about the Oval Office, couldn't care about the norms and the customs that go with the presidency. So he'll do whatever it takes to make himself look good. Everything else besides that, the presidency, be damned. I'm done.
You're smiling, Christine.
Sorry, we're just giving you facts here.
Just the facts.
Just facts you didn't know. We hate
facts,
those
facts
in the
you
news
didn't know.
media.
I know. I think Jonathan had a great explanation of what was going on here. One of the things that I found most interesting just watching this happen was not even the facts or lack thereof that were being put forth in this interview, but the overall sort of aura of surprise. I mean, yes, Giuliani just sort of revealed this out of nowhere. It's unclear whether this is a strategy at all.
Well, I mean, if you listen to Hannity,
he's so
like,
shocked.
What?
He was like, oh,
yeah.
You funneled it through a lawyer, right? Like,
and this is
even Hannity's trying to be like, please stop, like, quit with the
Somehow
talking.
he managed to turn up news amid his
It was a real,
otherwise kind of propagandistic program.
a real shocker to everybody. But also, it doesn't look good, even if it was supposed to be a PR move. Even the word funneled, as we talked about just before the show started, like none of this sounds like a positive move that the president is making or has made in the past. He's funneling money through lawyers. It's confusing. It's not breaking the law, but it's like maybe not breaking the law. We don't really want to get
Right,
into
so
that.
yes, if we can get into the law a little bit and talk, I think Earth 1 was where the courtroom is.
Yes,
so this is
where
a
we
PR
are.
stunt. Maybe this is playing on Earth 2. But on Earth 1, does this disclosure get Trump into much bigger trouble than he was in?
Well, it's actually really clear, and I think that even most lawyers who have been debating this on morning and evening news shows have not come down firmly, because one could say that because it was being paid through what Giuliani, I think, is describing as a sort of retainer. You know, Trump gives his lawyer fixer a certain amount of money per month to do whatever he needs to do. He doesn't know about it. It goes through a lawyer. That it's not a donation to his campaign. It's just money that he's paying a lawyer to take care of his private business. But what's unclear is whether if that money that Trump paid to his lawyer is used to sort of pay off a porn star to protect his reputation during the campaign, is that actually money being used for campaign purposes, campaign financing? In which case, it's too much money, so that would be illegal. That's above and beyond the amount that you're allowed to spend. But, you know, we're not really sure which way to go and where that falls.
You know, the one other thing to point out, the significance of Giuliani saying this to Hannity and Hannity's surprise. There were stories out last week, I think it was last week, it could have been last year, time moves so fast and slowly in Trump's America, that the president calls Sean Hannity all the time, that he is basically like the de facto communications director or chief of staff, bypassing General Kelly. So if Sean Hannity is surprised by something coming out of Rudy Giuliani's mouth, who's supposed to be the president's lawyer and who Sean Hannity has a connection to Michael Cohen. I mean, no wonder Sean Hannity was like, what?
Who's manning the telephone board there? That's what I want to know. Who's routing all these calls? Because something is being lost.
He's using his private cell phone, remember.
And we should mention that just before we hopped on this, we found out that the feds have had a wiretap on Michael Cohen's phone. So I guess we should probably dive into that. What does this mean? Does this look like more trouble for Trump? I guess the answer to that is yes.
Yes. I'm looking here, reading my tweets as we speak, and Stephen Portnoy from CBS Radio this is coming from NBC News. And this wiretap was weeks before he was raided. April 5, Trump denies knowledge of Stormy Daniels' payment, says you'll have to ask Michael Cohen. April 9th, FBI raids Cohen's office, home, and hotel room.
So, Michael Cohen, what's up?
Well, I guess that's another question is, by making this disclosure, one interesting thing that Jennifer Rubin wrote for our section, and everybody can check that out at WashingtonPost.com/opinions, but she wrote that Stormy Daniels has a defamation case against Trump, and that was for saying that it was false, that somebody had threatened her, that she made these false accusations. Now he says in his tweets this is false and extortionist. So now she has a stronger claim that he's trying to defame her. So then they take him and they take Cohen into court, or Trump into court, and maybe can then, a la Paula Jones' case, Bill Clinton, ask him questions that if he lies to, and these are going to be a lot of big questions about what has gone on with hush money and other affairs. If he lies to those, maybe that gets taken into Congress and could be grounds for impeachment. I mean, this is, a very forward-looking idea, but it does show that there are dimensions of legal trouble that Trump might be getting into here beyond what we've discussed.
So do we know how long this wiretap went on? Do we know that yet?
No, I have not seen that yet. But the fact that and one of the other things is it picked up a conversation between Cohen and the president and Giuliani.
A White House line.
A White House line. And apparently Giuliani is furious about this because it means that the president was being, I mean, come on, people. Can you believe this? We were talking about her emails and her pat falling out at 9/11 and all this stuff. And how crooked she is. And look what we've been through for the last, year and a half. The president of the United States is jacked up over a deal with to keep a porn star quiet.
I can believe it. We're on Earth 2. This is what Earth 2 is like.
I'll also point out very briefly something that I noticed this morning is that today is the day of the National Prayer Breakfast.
Oh, did you not watch that in the Rose Garden? He had a national prayer thing in the Rose Garden.
And he's addressing these faith leaders the morning after it was revealed that he had paid off a porn star and maybe lied about it. We're not sure that he lied. It sounds like he lied about it.
He went on Twitter and acknowledged, yeah, I did it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
wow.
he's like the affirmative OJ, not if I did it, yeah, I did it.
So we have a
Pray
comment.
for all of us. I don't know.
We have a comment on YouTube from Sharon Grossers who writes,
like an
when
SNL
I have
writing
retained a
room.
lawyer, if during that period of time I used him for a legal matter, I received a separate bill. A retainer is not payment for services. So it'll be interesting to see the breakdown of the discussion about what exactly Trump means when he talks about the retainer and the way, oh, also, I thought was kind of amusing. He took a long time to pay Michael Cohen back. He paid him back in like $35,000 installments over many months. Like, oh, Michael Cohen, come on.
Oh my God, but wait a minute.
Maybe they were just on the phone about his bills.
Wait, it was $131,000. So then what was the excess of 131? What was he paying?
The rest of his affairs?
Well, Giuliani said,
Affairs?
he added a little on top for, services rendered or something.
For other
Services
things.
rendered.
Yeah, for profit.
Those. Okay. I
guys
think we have to move on, even though we could talk about
Why?
this. We could
so
stay on
much.
Earth,
There's
too,
so
for all our lives. The New
Please
York
get me on.
Times got its hands on dozens of questions special counsel Robert Mueller wants to ask President Trump about Russian election interference and possible obstruction of justice. But will Trump consent to the interview at all? White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders, shocker, isn't offering many answers.
Specific questions about outreach by the campaign to Russia. Aren't these questions about collusion?
Once again, I'm not going to get into a back and forth about questions leaked or anything having to do with the special counsel, and I would refer you to the president's
And
attorney.
just one more, does this list factor at all into whether or not the president will or will not speak with the special counsel?
Once again, I would refer you to the president's outside counsel.
So this list has 49 questions. That is a lot. Christian, can you tell us what some of the most interesting or surprising are? What's essential here for everyone to know?
The essential thing is the word that came up in that press conference, which is outreach. You notice the journalist asked that question. What was really striking about this set of questions was the one that involved Paul Manafort. And apparently Mueller wants to find out if Manafort initiated contacts with the Russians during the campaign when he was Trump's campaign director. That is new. We've had a lot of information evidence about back and forth between the Trump campaign and the Russians, but what we still haven't really had is Manafort, at that time the campaign chairman, initiating contact with the Russians in return for whatever. So that language immediately popped out at a lot of people. It was very, very striking, and one suspects that Mueller has something in mind there, and that could be pretty huge. That could be potentially the smoking gun that a lot of us have been waiting for.
So the Post reported this week that Mueller raised the possibility of a presidential subpoena if Trump refuses to sit down and talk to his team. The team is not what it looked like last week, which is not what it looked like the week before that. I'm curious, Jonathan, do you have any thoughts on whether this shakeup is going to change the way that the president might respond to the question of whether he's going to sit down?
Look, it always looks great in the few hours after a shakeup happens. The only good thing about Emmett Flood is that he is a serious lawyer. He is a serious Washington lawyer, and if anything, I want the President of the United States to have excellent legal representation. Here's the problem. We've seen this over and over and over again. Here's H.R. McMaster. He's going to be greatest national security advisor. Within a couple weeks, the president hates talking to him. Here's John Kelly. He's coming in. He's going to shake up. He's going to straighten out the White House. He's great. Everything is wonderful. Kelly is hanging on by his fingernails and has been since at least January, from what I understand from Michael Wolff. And now here's Emmett Flood. And we had heard that the president was 100% behind Ty Cobb, 100% behind the other guy who just left. So if anything, Emmett Flood better hope that he has better luck than all the other saps who've gone into that White House, and not even into the White House, but come close to Trump, because there's no getting away from him. You remember in Ghost, when the evil people got killed, and instead of the angels coming down and lifting them to heaven, the little goopy guys from the cement would come up, and they're all black and like drag them away. Thank you, Christian.
Have you seen Ghost, Christine?
No.
I haven't seen Ghost either.
Wait, you've not seen
No.
Who are you
Patrick
people?
Swayze,
Yeah,
right?
that is sad.
We're young people.
Sad.
I'm sorry, I've seen old movies. Well, anyway.
Yes, but Ghost is no like Casablanca.
Oh, you tell that to Whoopi Goldberg, who won an Oscar for the seminal line in all of moviedom. Oh, Molly,
When I
you
see
in
her, I'll
danger,
tell her.
girl. you take a look at that. Anyway, Emmett Flood is going to come away being dragged down, I think, into a tar pit of professional and reputational misery. And there's no luster to representing a president of the United States that's going to help him simply because of who the president of the United States is now. Please see Ghost, please.
By the way, I haven't. Isn't
Is
it
this
kind
about
of
Ghost?
no?
Never mind.
Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Emmett Flood involved in defending Clinton?
Yes, that's
So-
that's another reason why this
Isn't
was a
this kind of
smart-
striking that the president would hire an impeachment specialist?
So one thing that's also
What's going on there?
striking about this appointment, yes, he represented Clinton. He also worked with Bush. But Ty Cobb was notable in that he was one of the legal advisors who was trying to get the president not to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
You know, the president
Right.
said that he was willing to have a conversation,
Right.
a chat with Mueller. Cobb was like, please don't do this. This is a terrible idea. The
Same
president
thing
was
with
like,
John Dowd, who
Yeah,
then
right.
resigned.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
President was
the
like,
guy.
no, I totally want to. And now, like less than a day later, we're seeing Giuliani on TV, just like saying whatever, saying that the president may or may not speak. They're sharing questions. They're doing all of this public stuff. It seems like kind of a different stance from trying to get the president to just like shut up already before he implicates himself to everything's not out in the open, but everything's up for conversation.
Just go ahead and implicate him for him.
Right.
Just go
Although
ahead.
We do have to take into consideration the notion that the reason, well, everyone seems to think that these notes and the questions and the topics came not from Mueller's camp, but from
Yes.
Rudy's camp, and that the whole purpose was to communicate to the president through the only thing he pays attention to, television, Mr. President, Donald, Mr. Trump, you are in trouble. Here's what they're going to ask you. For the
Right.
love of God, please don't go in there and talk to them, because he thinks, because on Earth too, but also in his days as a real estate developer in New York, he could bluff and bluster his way through
Right.
lots of things. Can't do that when you're president of the United
Right.
States.
And I think we can trust him to read 49 questions. I mean, he read all 12 articles of the Constitution.
Right. He loves reading. We've talked, yes. we've
Now,
heard that.
now.
Okay.
Is that a very big book, 12 articles?
All right. Oh, we have a YouTube comment from Sam, who says,
Gotta see it. It's good.
Ghost reference, Capehart? Facepalm with a facepalm emoji.
Well,
Do you know her name is Molly? Come on, it's a
Okay,
great
look,
line.
for the younger generation,
I don't even know what that
Dementors, Dementors. That's what he's talking about. The Dementors will
I
come
am-
and get
I
him
am
at
familiar
Yes,
with
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
Dementors.
yeah.
All right, sure.
They suck souls away.
Yeah.
Exactly. See, you knew what I was talking about.
Okay. On Facebook, Camo Ramos says, question to all. Since Donald's base is not affected by hypocrisy, truth, or anything, is there a journalistic shoulder shake and face slap that journalists have not tried on America yet? Basically, what do journalists do when people just don't believe their reporting? Is there anything that can be done to snap people to attention?
I think our job is to not slap people to attention. Our job is to report the facts so that they slap themselves to attention. But the only problem is, if folks are only getting their news from Fox News, they don't see the real rigorous reporting that we're doing, that the Times is doing, that NBC News is doing, that there's no wiggle room out of any of this stuff that's been reported. I mean, I'm exhausted by the amount of breaking news that we've gotten about real things that have happened. So I think, I'm sorry, Christian.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go
I
ahead,
just wanted
please.
to say, I think it's really important that the press be transparent about what it's doing. And I think the Post has been doing a great job of this, kind of showing how we work, what we're trying to do. I mean, I know that has a limited impact, but I think we need to be doing a lot more of that. If we're telling the rest of America that it needs to be transparent, if we're telling the president that he needs to be transparent, we need to be transparent about what we do. And so I think that's a very important.
Right. And
part of it.
speaking of transparency and what we do, just a reminder to our viewers that this is an opinion program. So this is reported analysis from a group of opinion writers. That's the newsroom back there. They do the news reporting. That is no opinion at all, and there is a wall between us.
Literally,
Literally.
literally,
Yep.
it's a glass.
It's hard.
You hear that?
We're locked in here. We can never leave. We just tweet.
Okay. Another front in the Mueller wars. It really does seem never ending. Congress's ultra-conservative Freedom Caucus has drafted articles of impeachment for Deputy Attorney General Rod J. Rosenstein if he doesn't turn over Justice Department information. The caucus want to know about officials' decisions during the Russia probe and the Hillary Clinton email investigation. Rosenstein said on May 1st that the Department of Justice is not going to be extorted.
I can tell you, there have been people who have been making threats privately and publicly against me for quite some time, and I think they should understand by now the Department of Justice is not going to be extorted. We're going to do what's required by the rule of law, and any kind of threats that anybody makes are not going to affect the way we do our job. We have a responsibility, and we take an oath. That's the whole point.
Trump does not think that that's the whole point. He tweeted, and I'm quoting here, "It's a rigged system. They don't want to turn over documents to Congress? What are they afraid of? Why so much redacting? Why unequal justice? At some point, I will have no choice but to use the powers granted to the presidency and get involved." So, Christine, is this an effective strategy to undermine public confidence in the Justice Department?
On Trump's part?
And on the part of the Freedom Caucus?
Sure. It's kind of hard to say. It's not very effective on me. We'll say that. It's fascinating that at this point in the presidency, after all that we've seen, the Mueller investigation, Russian collusion, Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen, we're still talking about Hillary Clinton's emails. Like that is a matter of importance right now, that's something that we need to revisit. It's also very clear, and has been clear from the beginning, that the Freedom Caucus is pretty much 100% behind President Trump, does not want him to be tarnished or prevented from pushing through their agenda in any way. So we kind of know where they stand. The House leadership in the House, even Paul Ryan, head of the party there, is not supporting this initiative. He seems to know that it's a sham and a distraction and does not want to get his hands mixed in.
He announced his retirement, and I mean, he's just gone.
Yeah, I'm sure he's ready to go. Who isn't at this point? But it is worth noting that Trump has said again and again and again. He's hinted at it. He's tweeted about it. He's mentioned it. Fox has mentioned it, and that's kind of his official mouthpiece. That he's going to have to get involved. He might get involved. Something's going to happen, and he's going to have to do something. So it's like they're telegraphing their idea that the president must get involved and that it's okay for him to do so. And that might work on his base. That might reassure him that it's an okay thing when it happens.
To fire Rod Rosenstein.
To fire Rod Rosenstein, or to do whatever else he feels like doing within the FBI.
And I think with this, again, I go back to my Earth 2 reference, the folks who are watching the president on Fox and getting their news from Fox, that's all they've been hearing. And so if/when, because it's just a matter of when Bob Mueller or Rosenstein get fired, or both, one or the other, or certainly both, that the base watching Fox will rise up and say this is a great thing to do. Again, the only problem is on Earth 1, where the rule of law is still paramount, he's in trouble. He is in big trouble. And also, that tweet that you showed is remarkably different than the series of tweets that came out this morning with so much punctuation.
Yes,
and
all the commas, all the
sentence
clauses,
clarity.
Yes.
Yeah.
and the grammar.
I
On a roll.
know, Ms. Clifford, parenthesis, Daniels. I mean, a lawyer writes like that.
It was not written by
It
him.
was written by him at all. But I digress.
So, travel back to Earth 1 for a second and talk about this
my passport?
impeachment thing. There is the idea that it's kind of smoke and mirrors to undermine public confidence. How plausible is it that the House Freedom Caucus could impeach Rod Rosenstein? Not very plausible.
What? Oh, anything's possible in Trump's America. Anything is possible in Trump's Washington. If you can imagine it, it can happen. You never thought in a million years that articles of impeachment would be drawn up against a Deputy Attorney General of the United States who is in charge of an investigation of the President of the United States. And you're talking about a Freedom Caucus that has been holding the Republican House majority hostage since Boehner was Speaker. So if they come up with articles of impeachment against Rosenstein and they present them to Speaker Ryan, if he decides to be like Punxsutawney Phil and show up to see if his shadow is there and say no, I guarantee you something will happen where they will have to take action, because the folks who are watching Fox News on Earth 2 are going to be burning up the phone line saying, why aren't you doing something about this guy?
Okay. I feel that my faith in Congress was unfounded.
Great, cool.
Yeah. That would have been well placed in 2009, 2010, but once they came in 2011, sad.
You know, there is something to be said, though, for Congress's general inefficiency and inability to get anything done.
Oh, it's been
these
great.
days.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll just sort of muck it all up, and then nothing will happen. We did have that business with the Democratic and Republican memos, that incredible super secret memo with information that was being released that turned out to be absolutely nothing.
Is this the Nunes thing?
Yes, the Nunez
yeah,
memo
the Nunes one. Yeah.
that was pumped up for years and then everyone forgot about it. So it's also interesting, too, that Donald Trump is complaining about redaction when that was redacted as all get out. But yeah, sometimes they say things and nothing happens. Often it is just a distraction. They're not very productive, and that could maybe save us.
A lot of this really is psychological warfare, isn't it? I think a lot of this is not really about the substance. It's about stirring up the base, getting people angry, stirring tribal passions. And I think we need to keep that in mind. Like you say, a lot of this stuff isn't really going to happen, but in some ways that's not the point.
Okay, so we've gone back and forth from Earth 1 to Earth 2.
I'm sorry
now
for all the
on
whipsaw.
whichever Earth we're on, let's go international. So President Trump really likes TV. He also really likes making domestic and foreign pronouncements based on what he sees on TV. This week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu attempted to appeal to the American president through his favorite medium. Netanyahu's goal? Get Trump to abandon an international accord on Iran's nuclear program. Here's Netanyahu. He's on Israeli TV, but he's speaking in English.
We never wanted to produce a bomb.
Yes, you did. Yes, you do. And the Atomic Archive proves it. The nuclear deal gives Iran a clear path to an atomic arsenal. And in a few days' time, President Trump will make his decision on what to do with the nuclear deal. I'm sure he'll do the right thing for the United States, the right thing for Israel, and the right thing for the peace of the world.
So, Christian, can you run us through what evidence Netanyahu presented as a reason for the United States to leave the Iran Accord? And can you tell me, is that a sound argument?
Well, the reaction to all of this has been really fascinating, but to summarize very quickly, Netanyahu was presenting what he said was an enormous cache of documents and information about the Iranian nuclear program obtained by Israeli intelligence that showed that, in Netanyahu's words, that Iran lied about its military nuclear program. Now, this became quite a brouhaha because, as many people noted, the evidence that Netanyahu produced, very impressive and very voluminous, was actually about a program that ended in 2003. In 2009, the International Atomic Energy Agency said, we know about all this, and they did that. It's in the past. So this has, of course, stirred up a lot of discussion and argument. I'm kind of intrigued by the European reaction, which has been basically, yes, this is exactly why we need the Iran nuclear deal. Because in the past, we couldn't trust the Iranians to just do whatever they wanted to do. So we set up this deal with its very extensive verification procedures precisely to contain them and slow down the program and create more transparency and get the world to see exactly what they were up to. Now, there's a lot of debate on that, right? It's a very, very complex issue, but I think Netanyahu maybe stirred up a little more than he was expecting.
Yes. So Trump says he'll make a decision about the deal by May 12th. Is it really critical that he decide by then? And also, do we have any sense of what he's going to do?
I think the consensus now is he's going to back out of it. And when that happens, it's going to be very interesting to see how the world reacts.
So I want to know more about how the world reacts, but also there's another part of the world we have to talk about.
Yep.
So North Korea. Last weekend, North Korea and South Korea had their summit, and North Korea has pledged to dismantle its nuclear test site. China's foreign ministry said today that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has reaffirmed he's committed to denuclearization. So, Nobel Peace Prize for Trump, right? I guess my question is, what do we... that was a joke.
No, and it was funny.
My question is, to whom do we attribute this progress, or even is this progress as big a deal as maybe people are making it out to be?
Well, look, the dirty little secret of talks with North Korea is that every expert will tell you, is that North Korea is never going to give up its nuclear weapons. Everybody knows that. So when we talk about denuclearization, what are we actually talking about? What we're actually talking about is getting the North Koreans to slow down, to restrict what they're doing, to place some kind of constraints on them. There is a value, certainly, to talking with them, to negotiating. It's certainly better than having them test more nukes, right? But the reality is, when they talk about denuclearization, the North Koreans have a completely different idea of what that's supposed to mean from our concept of the term. Mm-hmm. And, I hate to use a cliche, but this is really the case where the devil is in the detail, the dementor's in the details.
Thank you.
We're really going to have to see how this all plays out. There is a view to which I must confess I subscribe, which is that Kim has planned all of this out very nicely. I mean, credits to President Trump for putting pressure on Kim very effectively, getting the Chinese to come on board with pretty tough sanctions. But really, this looks very much to me like pretty much where Kim wanted to be at this point. I mean, he's going to be thrilled. He's going to be talking to the President of the United States. Right. That's what North Korea has been wanting for years.
Right. So he's going to be talking to the President of the United States. What should Trump be careful to do? What should he be careful not to do?
He should be careful not to give him carte blanche and sell out our position on the Korean Peninsula. That's what everyone is afraid of. Because
that he'll just say, all right, we'll take all the troops home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm going to wait till you're done.
Please.
No, please finish your thought.
Because I was going to talk about Ghost.
One of the You should not talk about Ghost when we're talking about North Korea.
Yeah,
I mean,
really.
This is a guy. Reality check, right? Kim and the South Korean president were hugging and making nice. Kim Jong-un is a guy who killed his uncle. Yeah. He's killed 300 people when he seized power. This guy is absolutely ruthless.
Didn't he poison a guy in the airport using two unwitting sort of reality TV
His
actresses?
half-brother.
That is the half-brother who got killed. Oh, and the half-brother and the uncle who he dragged out of some giant parliament meeting and killed.
Ghost, a memoir.
This is more Game of Thrones, really.
Yeah, no, this is more Red Wedding or so I hear you
I don't watch that.
talk about. Yeah, me neither. But so here's the thing about South Korea, about the whole Korea situation that I would love for Christian to tell me if I've been told the wrong information. So I interviewed Lisa Monaco, the former Homeland Security Advisor to President Obama, for the podcast back in January. I asked her about North Korea, and she said that her concern about what was happening because of the talks that were happening between the North and the South is that because the president had been so detached, that North Korea was trying to drive a wedge between the United States and South Korea, and that's what it's always wanted to do make all these plans with no input from the United States, and that's what looks like is happening now. To your point, the other thing is, so what? North Korea says we pledge to get rid of our nuclear test site, whereas someone said a while back that, well, what does it matter to them? They've done all their tests.
Yeah.
All those missiles they were lobbing last year, they've been able to figure out what works and what doesn't work. So what? They get rid of a test site. And then when I interviewed Bob Kagan at the Brussels Forum, again for the podcast, this is May, so March, middle of March, I asked him about North Korea because the big news was the president said, I'll meet with Kim. And he said, look, if it happens, okay, but every American president has bought the same rug for the last 25 years. And so if Rudy Giuliani, oh my God, what a faux pas. If President Trump actually has a meeting with Kim Jong-un, you know what, you are right. Meets with Kim Jong-un, will he be buying the same rug? Will we all be looking and saying, you know, that looks like the one in the living room? Anyway, so Christian's nodding, so I've been told the right information.
Okay, so we have to talk about Kanye
Oh,
West.
of course, talk about Earth
no.
2. This is Earth 3.
This is different.
This is
President
Middle
Trump
Earth.
has had a rough week, but at least he's getting love from Kanye. The rapper has been tweeting his support for the president over the past 2 weeks, and this week he declared that slavery was a choice. West made the assertion on TMZ Live, only to be checked by TMZ producer Van Latham. Take a listen.
You hear about slavery for 400 years. For 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like, you was there for 400 years and it's all of y'all?
You're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to believe whatever you want. But there is fact and real world, real life consequence behind everything that you just said.
So, Kanye's dropping an album next month, so we understand he's vying for attention, but this free thinking is missing, obviously, as we just heard, a whole ton of historical fact. Talking about real-life consequence. What are the real-life consequences here? What does it mean for him to be using his massive platform this way? Christine, if you want to jump in.
Do I want to jump in? Questionable. Yeah, no, you're right. So first we should establish that obviously Van Lathan is living on the world, Earth 1.
Yes.
And Kanye West is somewhere far away. It's been interesting, actually, even since Trump started running, Kanye West has been a surprising backer. There was a picture of them hugging that happened, I think, near the Charlottesville rally, which was uncomfortable for people. Kanye was showing off his signed Make America Great Again hat. There it is. Great. But one of the things that he said earlier in that interview with TMZ was that he was supporting Trump because he felt there was a kinship between them, people going against the odds and doing what's unexpected. And he was sort of wearing the hat and celebrating Trump in part because it was something that other people didn't do. It wasn't clear that he was in support of Trump's policies. He noted that he was not necessarily a conservative. He hadn't researched enough to say that he was that. But he liked doing the unexpected. He liked pushing back. And if you're an entertainer, if you're a public figure, that's a great way to get press. I guess that's a great way to promote, or maybe not actually a great way to promote your upcoming album. But his statements really sort of feed into a long legacy and a long line of thinking about how slavery is, sort of black people's fault, that it's our fault that we aren't doing enough to get ahead, that really if we would just be more like Kanye or be more like Trump, everything would be fine. There's no such thing as structural racism. There's nothing holding anyone back except the thoughts in their heads. That's just not true. That is a lie.
You know what I would love to do? I mean, if I could stand it for longer than 10 minutes. Take Kanye West to Montgomery, Alabama, and take him to, even if he only had 20 minutes, I would take him right into the middle of the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. Take him down the third hallway after all those monuments to the people who were lynched are hanging over his head, and have him read each one of those placards that line either side of that big walkway, descending walkway, where it talks about, gives the name, date, and the reason this black person or these black people were lynched. One was lynched because he was intoxicated. One was lynched because he was walking behind a white woman who was his boss's wife. Another person who was lynched because he was protesting unfair wage practices. A woman and her son were lynched because they couldn't find the person they wanted to lynch, so they lynched them. So Kanye West needs to come back to Earth 1, to come back to reality and understand that slavery was not a choice. Slavery was not some place where slaves were happy and at least they were fed and had clothing and housing, as some people sitting on Capitol Hill actually believe and say in 2018. And understand that
you know, to play with fire like this, all because you've got an album coming out, it's wrong, and I hope it falls flat. But then again, you know, you've lost your faith in Congress, and I've lost my faith in just sort of society to let this thing happen.
I mean, I think what you're saying is really important, and not to make light of this, but you know, to point out one of the things that Kanye West and Donald Trump have in common is that neither of them reads. Kanye West has said that he's not a fan of books. Same with the president. Maybe that's why they feel so close to each other. And this is just a case of a person without facts, without information, without historical knowledge, being given a huge platform to say whatever nonsense he thinks. And, you know, this is a societal problem. This is really symptomatic of how we got to this presidency in the first place. Because for some reason as a society, many of us have decided that if somebody has made a lot of money, if they've been on TV enough times, if we see their name in lights, it must mean that they're smart, that they're knowledgeable, that they have some magic that we don't, and so we should pay attention and do what they say. And in this case, we're seeing the clear folly of that in electing Donald Trump, the magic businessman who actually doesn't know anything about business and is not a good president, let's be honest here, on Earth One, and Kanye West.
And unfit.
And unfit, literally, physically, emotionally.
Oh, you went all the way there.
Sorry.
I was just taking
Just
it professionally.
facts.
Yeah, no, it is factual.
But Kanye West too. I mean, he's seen as sort of a black superstar, you know, a mogul, somebody who can stand up and talk for his community, except he's actually saying something completely wrong and completely at odds with the experience that black Americans have every day.
While having blonde hair and color contacts. But that's a whole other conversation.
Fitness.
But I think you're right, Christine, and I think in particular marketing all of that as free thinking and acting like research or facts are the enemy of free thinking is a thing that Trump has presented as well and that people are lapping up. So we're out of time, but not opinions. Check us out at WashingtonPost.com/opinions. I'll tell you it's only Thursday, but also we have a message from Whoopi Goldberg that I'd like Jonathan to read.
Say what?
Wait,
Where is it?
You'll get it. You'll get it.
Where's the message? Where am I going to get it?
I don't have control of the message. Here it is.
Molly, America, you in danger, girl. You've got to see this movie so you can see this scene. It is genius.
Please log us off.
It is so good.
Molly and America in danger. Okay.
Thursday.
We'll see you next week.
Wait, the Dementors are coming.